Today we'll be working in my workbook called Preparing to Leave Mount Sinai, and this is the second book called Consecration and Purity. Chapters 1 through 9 is the preparation before they actually leave to Mount Sinai, and this is the second book on it. Looking at the table of contents, we've already done the first one, chapter 1, where God is now giving them a couple more laws to add to the laws they already have about purity and restitution. But this next one, chapter 2, is a very fascinating one. So this is actually rather interesting to me, and we'll be going into that one. The law for jealousy. Numbers 5:11 through 31. To me, this is a very fun, fascinating chapter to me, but we'll see. Okay.
Then the Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, if a man's wife goes astray and is unfaithful to him, so that another man has sexual relations with her, and this is hidden from her husband, and her impurity is undetected, since there is no witness against her, and she has not been caught in the act."
So basically, this is God's way for a man to know if the child his wife is carrying is his or another man's. So this is dealing with a guy who's jealous, sometimes with reason and sometimes without reason. But this was God's way to answer that question for good, or at least for the time, because they had no DNA testing and they didn't have any of these other things. So God had to find a way that solved this. So if you had a man that was unreasonably jealous, this could solve it. Or if you had a woman gone astray, you could solve it. So verses 12 and 13 is a complicated way of saying a simple thing. Whether or not the wife had been unfaithful to the husband, does he know?
No.
Is there any witness against her?
No.
Has she been caught in the act?
No.
But in order for this to come up, does the husband suspect?
Yes.
Therefore, if God provides a way to prove the wife's fidelity, should this cure the jealousy of the husband?
Yes.
There was no paternity test or DNA testing in those days, so this was the way God had to solve this issue. The rules for adultery was clear. Leviticus 20:10. If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress are put to death. Now we know this sounds all easy, except that it's usually the woman that has been unfaithful if she gets pregnant. The man can hide all the time. So if a woman is found guilty of adultery, what is the punishment?
Death.
Death. Technically, the man who had adultery with her would have death too, but hard pressed to always find out who that person is.
Yeah.
And if they're caught in the act, realistically, how would they be caught in the act?
Yeah.
When the lady was brought in front of Jesus, who was adulterous, and the men brought her to her and wanted to see what Jesus's laws were as far as adultery and that it should be death. They bring the woman, and if they caught her in the act, they should know who the man was.
Yeah.
So, it's, when you start reading between the lines, you start kind of laughing a little.
And if feelings of jealousy came over her husband, and he suspects his wife and she is impure, or if he is jealous and suspicious and suspects her even though she is not impure, then he is to take his wife to the priest. He must also take an offering of a tenth of an ephron or barley flour on her behalf. He must not pour olive oil on it or put incense on it, because it is a grain offering for jealousy, a reminder offering to draw attention to wrongdoing.
Okay. If the man suspects his wife of committing adultery, then who should he take her to?
The priest.
What else must he also take to the priest?
Offering of a tenth of an ephron of barley flour on her behalf.
Right. What cannot be poured over it or put into it?
Olive oil or incense be in the barley flour.
Right. This grain offering is also called a what?
Reminder offering.
Notice the last words of verse 15. To draw
attention.
to the wrongdoing. Could this backfire on the man if the wife passes the test?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's putting them both at, front and center. And if she passes the test, then everybody's going to look at him and say, well, you're an idiot, you know?
Yeah.
So, although this is directed at the husband bringing the wife to the priest, how is this actually a great protection for the wife?
Just like what you said, makes him look like an idiot.
Right. You're not going to bring your wife to the priest with everybody watching unless you have pretty good proof. Otherwise, you're going to look like a major idiot.
Yep. The priest shall bring her and have her stand before the Lord. Then he shall take some holy water in a clay jar and put some dust from the tabernacle floor to the water. After the priest has had the woman stand before the Lord, he shall loosen her hair and place in her hands the reminder offering, the grain offering for jealousy, while he himself holds the bitter water that brings a curse.
So there's several steps to this. First, the priest has her
stand
before the Lord. So before the Lord, and of course it's out in public, and so other people will be watching as well. This was probably at the brazen altar since she can't go into the tabernacle. Then the priest makes a mixture of
holy water in a clay jar.
Yeah, and holy water and dust, from the tabernacle floor.
Right.
The water was probably from the laver in the court of meeting, and dust from the tabernacle floor. So really, other than being a little disgusting, not a lot to this water that would hurt you, technically. So the priest
loosened.
Yeah, the woman's hair. So now we have a good example that in that time frame, loose hair signified a loose woman. Most women kept their hair back and tied back. While there were no commands about a woman's hair in the Old Testament, we do have examples of bound versus unbound. Rebecca puts on her veil before she meets Isaac, and taking off the veil as a sign of a loose woman. These passages imply that a woman in ancient Israel generally covered their heads, making the veil a symbol of propriety, while its removal signified disgrace. So, I don't think it was as bad as the Sharia law, completely clothed from head to toe, but they were, they pulled their hair back and it was all confined because loose hair just noted the sexual, is more enticing. And so all these things. And so he loosened her hair. So number 4, the woman holds the
reminder
offering while the priest holds the bitter water. And this is a conditional curse. The drink will not harm a woman who has not committed adultery.
Then the priest shall put the woman under oath and say to her, if no other man has had sexual relations with you and you have not gone astray and become impure while married to your husband, may this bitter water that brings a curse not harm you.
Then the priest shall put the woman under
oath.
Oath here means divine witness. The priest is going to make an oath and the woman will have to agree to it before she drinks the bitter water. There's actually 2 parts to the oath. Go ahead and complete these.
If no other man has had sexual relations with you while married to your husband, and if you have not gone astray and become impure while married to your husband.
Since sexual relations are stated in the first part of the curse, what do you think gone astray and became impure means?
Lusting after a man.
Yeah, that could be it. That's true. That's where it gets sticky, I think, because, how far does that go?
Right.
How far does that go? I can understand sex, but how far does this go? Now, would it be all the stuff leading up to sex? That is cuddling up and kissing and all that stuff and gone astray? Is it just that? Is it your mind being distracted by another man? Well, that happens a lot, but you don't go through with it. So it's like, there's got to be a line which you don't cross type thing.
Right.
But anyway. that was when I was going, now wait a second, what does this mean exactly? Give me a
Yep.
give me definition here. If she had not done either of the two stipulations of the curse, what won't happen?
Bitter water won't harm her.
Many Bible scholars believe that the water itself may not have been bitter. The translation is not correct. It is more the curse bringing water of bitterness, which would mean bitter water, or bitter is the effect it brings, rather than the taste.
But if you have gone astray while married to your husband and you have made yourself impure by having sexual relations with a man other than your husband, here the priest is to put the woman under this curse. May the Lord cause you to become a curse among your people when he makes your womb miscarry and your abdomen swell. May this water that brings a curse into your body so that your abdomen swells or your womb miscarries.
There are two possible results to the curse. Either the woman would,
Miscarriage,
the child she is carrying, or the woman's
abdomen.
would swell. So my question is, how would you know the difference between a normal pregnancy swelling and cursed abdomen swelling?
Yeah.
Google defined it this way. I ask all kinds of questions.
Oh,
A
good.
cursed swelling would be an unusual, perhaps grotesque bodily change that serves as a public mark of guilt, versus a normal pregnancy, which is a healthy, gradual enlargement of the abdomen due to the growth of the fetus and associated maternal changes. Okay, I would have to see both of them to know for sure.
Yeah.
But obviously there has to be a way. Okay. Could a faithful woman still have a miscarriage after the ceremony?
No.
Isn't that interesting?
Because God would protect her.
Yeah. 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 I would think that would be true. If you go through this, and wouldn't this kind of ensure you're not going to miscarry? Some people have used this to mean that God allows and condones abortion, or allows and condones the morning after pill. What are your thoughts?
Well, thou shalt not kill. So I don't believe that's what's in the commandments. So thou shalt not kill. So you shouldn't have an abortion or that's what they invented birth control pills. But back in those days, they didn't have that. So what did they use for birth control?
Right. Yeah. No, I understand all that, and I don't think it condones it at all. But I can see where people want to interpret it that way. So
yeah. Okay. Then the woman is to say amen, to be it. The priest is to write these curses on a scroll and then wash them off into the bitter water. He shall make the woman drink the bitter water that brings a curse. And this water that brings a curse and causes bitter sufferings will enter her. The priest is to take from her hands the grain offering for jealousy, wave it before the Lord, and bring it to the altar.
does the woman have to agree before she drinks the cursed water?
Yes.
What does the priest do after the woman agrees and before she drinks the water?
Write the curses on a scroll and put it in bitter water.
Right, wash it off in bitter water. So whatever they use to make the scroll, the words, I guess. So to be clear, what all is in the water?
Holy water and dust and ink from the scroll.
Right. What was in the woman's hand prior to drinking the water?
Reminder offering.
Right. So in essence, she is trading the priest the grain offering for the clay jar. What is the priest going to do with the grain offering?
Wave it before the Lord and bring it to the altar.
So what was this grain offering called in Numbers 5:18?
Reminder offering.
Right.
The priest is then to take a handful of the grain offering as a memorial offering and burn it on the altar. After that, he is to have the woman drink the water. If she has made herself impure and been unfaithful to her husband, this will be the result. When she is made to drink the water that brings a curse and causes bitter suffering, it will enter her. Her abdomen will swell and her womb will miscarry, and she will become a curse. If, however, the woman has not been made herself impure, but is clean, she will be cleared of guilt and will not be able to have children.
And we'll be able to have children.
Will be able to have children.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So wouldn't this also mean that you'd be able to have more children? Not just, I think there's other things related to this. In verse 26, what is the priest doing with the grain offering?
Burn it on the offering.
Right. It's a memorial offering and burn it on the altar. Yeah. Let's clearly understand this grain offering. Numbers 5:15. He, the husband, must take an offering of 1/10 of an ephah of barley flour on her behalf. He must not pour olive oil on it or put incense on it because it's a grain offering for jealousy, a reminder offering to draw attention to wrongdoing. Numbers 5:8. After the priest has had the woman stand before the Lord, he shall place in her hands the reminder offering, the grain offering for jealousy. Numbers 5:25. The priest is to take from her hands the grain offering for jealousy and wave it before the Lord and bring it to the altar. And then 5:26. The priest is then to take a handful of the grain offering as a memorial offering and burn it on the altar. If the woman has not been led astray, nor has been an adulteress, what is the result of the cursed drink?
Cleared of guilt and will be able to have children.
Right.
This then is the law of jealousy, when a woman goes astray and makes herself impure while married to her husband, or when feelings of jealousy come over a man because he suspects his wife. The priest is to have her stand before the Lord and is to apply this entire law to her. The husband will be innocent of any wrongdoing, but the woman will bear the consequences of her sin.
Right. He won't be innocent of any wrongdoing, but he'll be a laughing stock for quite a while. That's my own opinion.
Yep.
This ritual is called what in verse 29?
Law of jealousy.
There were a lot of benefits from these laws. Here are a few. A, this was a way to test a wife suspected of adultery when there was no witnesses, preventing the husband from punishing her based on suspicion alone. Because, they can be stoned to death for adultery. Well, if you never had any proof of it, how are you going to do that? So this provided a divine process to resolve suspicion, thereby preserving marriage and upholding marital fidelity by removing doubt through a God-mediated trial by ordeal. There was no way to manipulate the priest by either party, and that's absolutely true. You could go, if it was the priest that decided, you could pay him and say, I want a new wife, so destroy this one for me, or any of these things. But this means God is the only one who makes the decision. So that's pretty cool. Man is out of the decision. Where this was done publicly, it was a warning to all about the ramifications of adultery, and that's also true. Was the husband penalized by bringing his innocent wife through this ordeal?
No.
But he should be. Anyway, maybe not by law, but I imagine his family and neighbors would give him grief. Based on this, how important is the sanctity of marriage to God?
Very important.
Yeah, it is very important. The sanctity is extremely important.
Yeah.
Okay, we come to the crossword. Okay, number 5. Who does the husband who suspects his wife take her to?
Priest.
6. If unfaithful, the water would cause the woman's
abdomen
to swell. 8. A grain offering for jealousy is also known as a
reminder
offering. 10. The priest should take a handful of the grain offering as a
memorial
offering. 11. If the wife has not been unfaithful nor gone astray, the water will not hurt her or harm her, whichever. 12. Aside from holy water in the clay jar, there is also
dust
from the tabernacle floor. 1 down, the priest would also loosen the woman's
hair
for the ceremony. 2, if the unfaithful woman was pregnant, the water would make her
miscarry.
3, the writing on the
scroll
would also be washed off in the water. 4, the water she is drinking is called
bitter
water, but that might mean what it does, not its taste. 7, this law was used for men who thought their wives had gone astray or were
unfaithful.
And 9, what was the penalty for adultery?
Death.
Yeah. All right. So yeah,
I
I
think
thought
that was
this,
very interesting.
yeah, I agree.